Aloha and welcome to Ascension Alliance Hawaii. Predictions, premonitions, prophecy, visions, and revelation. Let's get into some of these things that may seem confusing to some people, may actually seem similar, and or they may actually all fall under the same umbrella, just that they are probably expressed differently. So what does prediction mean? Well, prediction is the act of predicting something foretold or predicted, a prophecy, the act of foretelling also that which is foretold. Prophecy, it's similar to prophecy. Premonition, a presentiment of the future, a foreboding, a warning in advance, a forewarning, previous warning, notice, or information. Forewarning, a premonition of danger, similar to forewarning. Prophecy, an inspired utterance of a prophet viewed as a revelation of divine will, a prediction of the future made under divine inspiration, such as an inspired message or prediction transmitted orally or in writing. Vision or visions, the faculty of sight, eyesight, for example, that could also mean poor vision, or something that is or has been seen, unusual competence in discernment or perception, intelligent foresight, a leader of vision, for example. There's also spiritual vision. So it's a vision, a vision is something seen in a dream, trance, or religious ecstasy, especially a supernatural appearance that usually conveys a revelation. Visions generally have more clarity than dreams, but traditionally fewer psychological connotations. Spiritual vision refers to the ability to perceive images, scenes, or symbols that convey messages from the spiritual realm, often experienced during meditation, prayer, or dreams. It can provide insights, guidance, and a deeper understanding of one's spiritual reality. Revelation, the act of revealing or disclosing something revealed, especially a dramatic disclosure of something not previously known or realized, a sudden insight or idea. Now, as you know by now, there are a lot of people out there making predictions. And they're predicting the weather, they're predicting earthquakes, they're predicting collapse. Just a flurry of predictions that are occurring right now all across the globe by several different people. A lot of them are psychic people, and they may be religious people as well, making these predictions. But when you think about how things are going right now, excuse me, how the energies are flowing across our planet, and that not only affects all life beings, but it affects humans as well. You more or less don't really need a prediction for this one, because we're all aware that the weather and there's a lot of natural disasters going on. So that's, to me, it's common knowledge. It's common sense. You don't need a prediction for that. We're in the space of a lot of changes, a lot of shifting going on. consciousness-wise, shifting going on with Gaia, with the Earth, just all over the place. A lot of changes are taking place. Some of them are upheavals. You never can tell. But the weather especially. And we're seeing a lot of earthquakes occurring right now. And, it's in that space of energy for these things to occur. So I really don't understand how predictions can be made on this, because we're in that space already. So with all these natural disasters, natural things going on with our planet, with the sun, the solar activity that's going on. So it's a giving. It's a given from what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling, and what I'm seeing going on. Now, a lot of times when people go to get readings from psychics or energy healers that do perform these readings for others, sometimes, if not most times, a lot of it comes across as predictions. But knowing that predictions can shift and change, it's a potentiality. There's potential for things to occur. There's also potential for things to not occur with that individual that is having that reading done. That's why I more or less don't really do readings for anyone, because everyone can basically read themselves, and they have all that information within them to answer all the questions that they basically need. Now, a lot of times people become addicted to getting readings, and a lot of times they just want to hear what they want to hear. But like I said, anything can happen and anything cannot happen, and predictions are basically potentialities. Now, premonitions is something slightly different. It is a forewarning of something that is about to occur, about to happen. And when you have a premonition, most times you're not sure what it means. You have an idea, you have a sense, a feeling, but that premonition, you're gonna more or less have to decipher and dissect that and figure out what that premonition and forewarning is actually speaking to you of. Now, over the years, I've had several different premonitions, and I knew actually what those premonitions were. Perhaps I think one of them, one or maybe two, I wasn't clear, I wasn't sure about, but I knew it wasn't a good thing. I knew something concerning was coming up, and I just could not put my finger on it. But the premonitions were very, very strong, and I needed to figure that out. It's almost like you're trying to figure out a metaphor. So, it'll come in a different way, shape, and or form. Like, one of my premonitions came through dreams. And so the dream had nothing to do about what it showed me in the dream, but it was beyond what that dream was speaking to me about. But I knew intuitively that something was seriously wrong, and there were those that were withholding information from me, which happened to be family members. but I knew something was very wrong, and I was not at home. I was in a different country, but I received that through dreams. I received this particular premonition through dreams, and it came to me 3 nights in a row, and it was the same dream over and over. And so that premonition and dream that came to me was about my cats and my mother taking care of my cats while I was away. And I was away for a long time. I was in Japan for 6 months working. And so every time I'd call back home, she would tell me everything was fine, my cats are fine, don't worry about it. And the funny part is, when I did call home, those 3 times, my mother did not sound the same. She sounded like a totally different person. And so, I would hang up. I knew something was wrong. Really, really wrong. I also knew that they weren't telling me what was actually going on. I didn't know it had nothing to do with my cats. That's the first thing I was thinking. Okay, my cats, something happened to them. But it was far from that. It was much deeper, and it had everything to do with both of my parents. After the 6 months that I did get home, and both my parents came to pick me up at the airport, I noticed that they were both driving in separate cars. I also noticed that my mother was very different. She dressed different. Her aura about her was just totally different. And she seemed very mean to my father. And, I just watched both of them, how they reacted to one another. And, she would yell at him and tell him to go home. She doesn't need to be there, that she's there to pick me up. My mother, she had makeup on, and it just totally was not my mom. My mom was never that way. She never made herself look really, really nice, but this time it was like she had all this jewelry on and everything, and I've never seen her this way. But eventually I've come to find out that they separated and they were actually getting a divorce. So if anyone told me that that was going to happen while I was in Japan, I would never have returned home. And so I know they knew that. They knew how I actually was, and so nobody said anything. None of my family members. Another premonition that I did have dealt with actually me and my 3 other siblings, and I had this strong feeling that came over me that told me that one of us 4 was not going to survive very long. And the feeling was so strong that I was supposed to go back to Japan again. But I ended up turning that offer down to go back and work again for another 6 months. So I passed on that. I just had an awful strong feeling that one of us was not going to be around for very long. My first thought was that my younger brother, something is going to happen to him because he's got involved in riding motorcycles and he got himself a motorcycle. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of dangerous, so he might get into some kind of mishap. But no, it wasn't him. After a few short months, my older brother passed, and that was very devastating for myself and for my family as well. That was a really challenging time. But that premonition came on so strong. And then in 2011, I had another premonition, but it felt like a premonition and a vision and everything all bundled into one. And I was at work this time. I was working at Costco's, and I was assisting my cashier. And what happened there was, all of a sudden everything stopped around me, and I was no longer there. And I stood still, and I looked around, and no one was around. I mean, it was very strange. It was weird, but I just stood there for the longest time, not aware that I was still in the warehouse, but I wasn't. And my cashier was trying to get my attention the whole time, but I couldn't hear nobody. I couldn't see nobody. I was someplace else. And it was really hairy for me, because all that I felt during that time was something ominous was about to occur, and that thousands of people were about to lose their lives. I wasn't sure where this was going to occur, how this was going to occur, but it was just so horrible, and me being in that space of nothingness or nowhere at all, and not being able to communicate with those around me in this warehouse. It was a trip for me, and nobody could break me out of this so-called trance that I was in. There was a lady that told my cashier, "Look at her, she's turning pale." And, I didn't even hear that. I didn't even realize that. I didn't even notice that. I didn't speak or anything. I was just like this the whole time, and I wasn't even moving. And then I came to, and as soon as I came to, I burst out in tears. I cried and I cried and I cried. And my cashier and my other coworkers came to me and asked me, "What's going on? What happened? What happened to you? You were non-responsive. You were standing there, and we were calling you, and we were talking to you, but it was like you weren't even there." And so they took me in the office, sat me down, asked if I was okay and whatnot, and I said, "I don't know. I really don't know." I told them I don't know what happened. I said, "But can I call my family?" I'm thinking, okay, I better call my family. I don't know if something happened there, but that feeling and being in nothingness, that was trippy. That was super trippy for me. But as soon as, everything kind of sort of subsided, and then not too long after, Fukushima happened, where thousands and thousands of people passed. Now there's also prophecy. Now a lot of spiritual leaders prophesize. They do predictions of the future made under divine inspiration. So as I think about all of these, prophecy, prediction, visions, revelation, premonitions, they're almost basically the same. They're just different, I would say, nuts and screws to the same umbrella, basically. There's a lot of prophecy going on out there as well. And, it's best not to get caught up in all of these things. It's best to basically live your life. But we also know at the same time that in the Bible it did state that eventually everyone will start beginning to prophesize. And that's what's happening right now. Now, visions, something that is or has been seen, unusual competence in discernment or perception, intelligent foresight. So vision, I think, has a lot of foresight to it. And I've also had visions. I've had a lot of these, if not all of them. And so vision, there's spiritual vision. There was one vision that I did have, and you're gonna, if you haven't had any of these by now, you can have them through dreams as well. They will come across whichever way that it can. If it cannot reach you through certain avenues, then it will find the easiest way to get to you, and that could be dreams. You could have it in your waking life, like how I had that one about in my waking life. I was awake. I was wide awake when that occurred to me. But there's a lot of different visions as well. And a lot of the visions are spiritual. They're spiritually inclined visions. I've had a spiritual vision while I attended a church with a good friend of mine, my best friend. I figured, okay, I was this denomination, so I'm going to check out her denomination and see what it's all about. I was open to whatever and just basically learning from whoever's religion and whatever. So I went with her, and I went with her to her Catholic church. I didn't know what that was all about. I thought that was really interesting. Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And so when we finally sat down, and I don't know if that was a bishop or a priest at the front, he was speaking in a different language. And so I just closed my eyes. To maybe hear better or understand whatever he was saying. And then I opened my eyes. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw with my spiritual eyes. It is very different, the spiritual eyes versus the physical eyes. So that was very, very interesting to me. Everything was spiritual. I was in the spiritual realm. I saw a lot of spiritual beings there. It was as if we were all in our spiritual bodies. We were all sitting, all waiting. And everyone, whoever was standing up and going to the center, was ready to come down to Earth or whatever planet that he or she or whatever decide to go, their decision. Their path was all created by them. Their lives, their parents, their circumstances and issues, challenges in life that would teach them the lessons that they needed to learn as a human and or soul. They were ready to come down to Earth or other planets. And as they were moving in the center, they were going to this really magnanimous light. It was like a golden light. It was like source creator. That warmth and that love, pure love, was undescribable. I can't describe it in words. It was so immense, and it just permeated your entire being. It was so loving. It was so huge. It was, I mean, I'm getting chicken skin talking about this, and this happened in the 90s for me. And so I was aware that everyone that was ready to come to this planet and or other planets was ready and chose their life path, chose every inch of it, every second of it, all the way up to their passing and the way that they were going to pass. So I had an idea that I knew that, but this confirmed it. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And the spirits that did not come forth was not ready. They were not ready to take that jump yet. And so I was really blessed to be able to have witnessed this with my spiritual eyes. And I closed my eyes and then I opened them back up. And I saw normal with my physical eyes. And then I looked to my friend and I told my friend what I saw, and my friend looked at me and she said, "Why can't I see stuff like that? Here you are and you're not even of this church, and all of a sudden you see that." I just had to chuckle and laugh. I'd shrug my shoulders and say, "I don't know." But that was really, really cool. Now, revelation, the act of revealing or disclosing, we're going through revolution right now. The great revealing is happening and has been happening since 2020, if not even further back. Just that many people were not aware of it, nor were they paying attention to what was actually being revealed. Everything that has been in the dark is being revealed. That's basically revelation for you. It's something revealed, especially a dramatic disclosure of something not previously known or realized. So it's happening. Revelation is happening now. Although in the Bible and in all these other perhaps spiritual teachings and or books, they also speak about revelation. But revelation is happening in real time as we wake up every single day. A lot of things are being revealed to us. Things that have been not revealed to us before, or we've been asleep at the wheel. We haven't been paying attention. Now is forcing everyone to pay attention, and it's literally slapping and punching us all in the face and being revealed, telling us, what are we going to do about these things? We know here. We can't say we don't know and we don't see it. We're seeing things being revealed to us in real time. So, yeah, we're living in revelation right now. So these are some of the things that I just wanted to talk about today and run through it, see how you think about it. I'm interested to hear your comments, your take on it, especially if you've gone through some of these experiences, or if not most of them as well. I mean, there's so many experiences spiritually that I've gone through over the years and decades, from the 80s going into the 90s, and things started to escalate for myself. I would just simply basically go with the flow of things. I wouldn't be afraid of it. I would become tired of it, irritated of it, but it's as if things that I have no control over and I cannot stop, and it's all meant to be. So I just basically embraced it all and went with it, sought assistance and help from those that were more deeply involved in perhaps dreams, premonitions, predictions, psychic things like that. So I just would basically try to understand, do research, study more upon these things. And back then, there were classes to be taken. There were a lot of bookstores, off the beaten path type of bookstores, that had so much different spiritual types of books to read. And so back then, it would either be those type of bookshops or libraries. I mean, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all this information. We didn't have Google, where you can just, or AI, where you can just go on your phone and look up whatever's topic for information. We didn't have that. We had to do everything legwork. We had to either drive if we had a car, or walk, or catch the bus to do things. And so that was me. I did things that way. I would go to the offbeat bookstores and find the information that I needed to help me with everything that I was growing through, which helped me tremendously. But that's how it was for a lot of us back then. Now it's so much easier. It's super easy. So, I mean, yeah, you can just click of a button and you get all the information. Click of a button and you get the book. You don't have to go anywhere for anything. Everything comes to you, which is fabulous, but I still think back then it was fabulous as well, because it was more grassroots when it comes to spiritual or psychic or gifts and things like that nature. And even the classes and courses back then, a lot of it was basic grassroots. You connected differently versus now. When you connected with other people, I think now networking and connecting with other people is very huge. But back then it was small. It wasn't as huge as it is today. And so, it's more intimate, the connection there. But yeah, I liked it back then. I liked it how I would have to go and do the legwork. I would have to go and get all these books. I had tons of books. My car, the back seat was like a library. I had all these different types of books from all different types of authors. And I would read them over and over. I would apply everything that I read in these books. I wouldn't just read the book. I mean, anybody can read, things, but you absorb it more when you apply the information to you and your life and the path that you walk. So I just wanted to share these things and hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Aloha.